10 most important concepts from Indian Contract Act or CA Foundation law. Students, these are concepts which are very frequently asked in the exam. Every attempt, 100% questions are asked on these concepts. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Hi, I am CA Preeti Agarwal and I make lectures specially for you. If you are searching for the best revision book for CA Foundation Law, then this chart book is your choice. Visit my website capreetiagarwal.com for books, lectures, test series for CA Foundation and CA Inter Law. So students, the book that I'm referring is my chart book. These are A3 colored charts. So you will get an A3 colored chart book. It is, students, the book that I'm referring is my A3 color chart book. These are revision notes which cover the entire syllabus. So these are colorful charts for every unit. After the chart, you will get notes for writing practice. Okay, I have left space for writing practice, something like this. So the idea is that you study the concept and then you learn and write and practice, because students, they don't write and practice and they get less marks in the exam. So we study the chart and after that we write and practice the concept. So it has such kind of dedicated pages where you can learn, write and practice. Okay, so you will get A3 size color chart book. All right. So I am referring my chart book for discussing these 10 concepts. You can purchase this chart book from my website capreetiagarwal.com. I'm leaving a link in the description also. So the first concept which I have chosen for today's discussion is the difference between offer and invitation to offer. Many students, they always face a problem in attempting a question asked on this concept. Wherever required, I will also discuss the relevant question and what kind of question will be asked on that concept. Okay. So the first concept which I have identified, which is very, very frequently asked in the exam, is what is offer and how is it different from offer. So you may be asked either a theory question where, they ask, explain offer. How is it different from invitation to offer? So a theory question may be asked, or a case study type question can be asked on this concept. Okay, so offer and invitation to offer. Now, if you have confusion in this concept after watching this video, you will feel that it is a very easy concept. You will be able to apply this in the questions also. So what is an offer? Now, let's say that I offer to sell this pencil to you. I say, do you want to buy this for 8,000 rupees? You say, yes, ma'am. All right. This is an offer. It can be accepted or rejected immediately. It is expressing my final willingness. I want to sell this. Will you buy it? I'm not confused. I have decided I want to sell this pencil. It's an offer. But what if I come and tell you that I want to buy this pencil? Do you have 5 pieces? Please send me the best price at which you will sell this pencil. Is it an offer? No. In fact, I'm inviting offer from you. This is an invitation to offer, where I'm inviting the offer from the other person. Invitation to offer is just a circulation of offer. It comes before a definite offer. In fact, it is inviting offer from the other person. The other person makes an offer which we will either accept or reject. Okay. So what are the key points? Now, if a question is asked in the exam, be it a theory question or a case-based question, you have to explain what is offer and what is invitation to offer. So what is offer? What will you write? See, students, this chart book will actually help you to memorize all the points. You can just elaborate these points in the exam. So what will you write for offer? Offer is definite. Now, I'll explain how you will learn and how you will translate this in your own words in the exam, how you will elaborate. Okay, now, offer is definite. It is capable of converting an intention into a contract immediately. It is a final expression of willingness. I have made up my mind, I want to sell this pencil. So it's the final expression of willingness. It can be either accepted or rejected immediately. Offer can be bound immediately by accepting it. So if you say, yes, ma'am, I want to buy, you are bound immediately. What happens in case of invitation to offer? It's just a circulation of offer. It comes before a definite offer. It is inviting offer from the other person. It does not become an agreement. Upon acceptance, it is in fact inviting offer from the other person. Okay, so other person is giving the offer, that is not acceptance. Very important to write in the exam. Case law, Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain versus Boots Cash Chemist Southern Limited. You need to just mention name of the case law. No need to elaborate the case law. Okay, no need to mention. You need to write the facts only when a question is a direct conversion of that case law. So let's say, for example, they give a question like this. Shambhu Dayal started a self-service system in his shop. Shrimati Prakash entered the shop, took the basket. This is nothing but a conversion of that case law into question. Then yes, you need to explain the facts of the case law in brief with one line of judgment. Okay, even if you don't have time, you don't write, it is fine. I have seen model answers where they have not described, they have not mentioned the facts or the judgment of the case law. So it is okay if you just mention the name, but please put that name of the case law in a box, highlight it in some manner, draw the attention of the examiner. Right? Now, how will you elaborate these points? See, it is very easy to learn this. That is why I have made the chart book, because all the concepts are simplified. See, what is general offer? It is an offer made to the public at large. Anyone can accept by performing the desired act. Case law's name is given. So it is so easy to learn. Now, offer, it is definite. Now, how to convert this into sentence form? Offer is definite. It is capable of converting an intention into a contract. Offer is, you just have to write these few words. Offer is the final expression of willingness to enter into a contract. Offer can be accepted or rejected immediately. Offeree is bound immediately when he gives his acceptance. It's so easy. What is invitation to offer? Invitation to offer is merely a circulation of offer. It comes before a definite offer. It is merely an attempt to induce offer from the other person. This does not become an agreement upon acceptance. In fact, it is inviting offer from the other person. Case law, Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain versus Boots Cash Chemist Southern Limited. Now let us check whether the ICAI's model answer covers these points. What if we simply study this and go? Will we be able to attempt the question? Let's check that also. This is the answer given by ICAI. Now, this is my compiler, law compiler. It is a compilation of all the past exam questions, study material, RTB, MTB questions arranged unit-wise. Answers are given in proper format, provisions, facts, analysis, and conclusion. So you will know how to start the answer, what to write in the answer, and how to conclude or end the answer. This book is also available on my website, capreetyagarwal.com. I will leave a link in the description box. It is the best book, best question bank. I'm telling you, students, 100% questions will be from this book only. We also have a concept book. So there are 3 books: concept book, question bank book, and the chart book. Now, offer is different from invitation to offer. Offer is definite. It is capable of converting an intention into a contract. It is the final expression of willingness by the offerer to be bound if the other party chooses. If without expressing a final willingness, he proposes certain terms on his, he is willing to negotiate. He is not making an offer, but he is only making an invitation to offer. They have written less, but I have given you more content to write. If you notice, these are the words which are similar to what is given in the model answer. Yes. Now, what is the question? It is a self-service shop. Okay. Srimati Prakash entered the shop. She took the baskets. She reached the cashier. He refused to sell. She say, how can you do that? Display is offer. I am coming to you. I put the goods in the basket. That is acceptance. You have to sell it. Okay. She is saying that display is offer. I put the goods in the basket. That is acceptance. You have to sell. Is she correct? No. Display is only invitation to offer. By putting the goods in the basket, the customer has given the offer which can be accepted or rejected by the cashier. So the cashier can reject. In the answer, you will first explain offer. Then you will explain invitation to offer. It is important for you to write the name. Okay, just write the name of the case law, pharmaceutical society. This has to be written in your answer compulsorily. In analysis, you just need to explain that display is invitation to offer. The customer, by putting the goods in the basket, has given offer. And the acceptance takes place at the cashier, so he can either accept or reject. This is the point of contract. This is the point when contract is made. So this is how you need to frame your answer: provisions, facts, analysis, and conclusion. So display of goods is merely an invitation to offer. Srimati Prakash, by selecting the goods and going to the cashier, has made an offer. If the cashier does not accept, the interested buyer cannot compel. How will I know what is to be written in conclusion? See, they have written, can Shambhu Dayal be compelled to sell the said articles? Then there is a question mark. So by reading this, you will write the conclusion. Okay, this is to be answered in the conclusion part. So what have I written? He cannot be compelled to sell the said article. So this is how you will frame. This is my compiler. It is available on my website, cpritiagarwal.com. Let us now proceed to the next question, that is from consideration chapter. Validity of agreements without consideration section number is also important. Theory as well as case-based questions are asked from this part. Very important, mostly for theory. Theory will be asked for 6 to 7 marks. Case-based can be asked for 4 to 5 marks. Okay. Now, section 25, validity of agreements without consideration. Normally, no consideration, no contract, but these are exceptions wherein the contract is valid even though there is consideration for just one party. Contracts made on account of natural love and affection. There are 4 conditions to be satisfied. All the 4 conditions should be satisfied cumulatively. Cumulative means they are all to be satisfied. Even if one condition is missing, it is not an exception. Now, husband promised to pay wife 25,000 rupees as pocket money. Here, wife is getting consideration, but husband is not getting anything in return. However, if the agreement is in writing, it is registered based on natural love and affection between persons standing in near relation. What is near relation? It means relation of blood or marriage. Then, even though there is consideration for just one party, the contract is valid. These 4 conditions have to be written in your answer. If a theory question is asked, write one example. Okay. Then agreement to compensate for past voluntary services. Now let's say for example that A found a purse of B voluntarily. Okay. A found B's purse voluntarily. Now B wants to compensate him. Law says that when this promise is made, there is consideration for A, but there is no consideration for B. Even though there is consideration for just one party, contract is valid if the services have been rendered voluntarily. They have been rendered for the promiser. Promiser must be in existence and he must have intention to compensate. Now, if B says, thank you so much, can A ask for compensation? No. But if B voluntarily promises to pay, then it is a valid contract. Man, isn't this past consideration? No. In case of past consideration, the person acts at the request of the promiser. Here, it is not the case. He is not acting at the request of the promiser. He is acting voluntarily. So, this is not a case of past consideration. Okay. Then we have promise to pay a time-barred debt. Now, time-barred debt, they are so old that they are legally not recoverable. In case of debt, anything beyond 3 years means it is not legally enforceable. It is not recoverable. A has to pay 1 lakh rupees to B. It has been 5 years. He has not paid money. B also did not take any action. After 5 years, he went to take action and he realized that this has become a time-barred debt. So, he's very sad. He's not able to recover the money. However, after 2 years, A on his own comes and tells B that now I wish to pay. Okay. Now in this case, A is paying 1 lakh rupees. Okay. This debt has become time bar. Now when A promises to pay 1 lakh to B, there is consideration for B, but there is no consideration for A. You cannot say, no, man, he had received 1 lakh in the past. That is a different contract. Here he is making a promise to pay 1 lakh rupees to B. B is getting consideration, but there is no consideration for A. However, if the agreement is in writing, it is signed by the promisor or his agent, and it relates to a time barred debt, even though there is no consideration for A, it will still be a valid contract. In case of agency, no consideration is required to create the contract of agency, section 185. Completed gifts. I have already given a gift. I cannot ask for return gift. But what if I merely promise to give? Then that is not a valid contract because I have not given anything and I have not received anything. There's no consideration. So completed gift is a valid contract. Mere promise will not be valid. Very similar to this is charity. I promise to give something in charity. That is not a valid contract. I have already given charity. Then I cannot expect anything in return. It is a valid contract. Bailment, no consideration is required to create gratuitous bailment. Gratuitous means free of cost, free of charge. X gave his cycle to Y not free of cost, but he's not taking any for pleasure trip, okay, for pleasure riding. He's not charging anything. So this agreement is valid even though X is not getting anything in, okay. So bailment, if it is gratuitous, there is consideration only for one party. He's enjoying getting the cycle to ride, but not paying anything, even though X is not receiving anything. It's a valid contract because in gratuitous, you don't expect anything in return. So these points are important. You need to write an example for the first, second, and third point. For others, even if you don't write example, you don't have time, it is fine. Okay. The next concept which I have chosen, okay, there's a question which I had selected from my compiler. It's an important question. In my lectures, I had also highlighted this as to be studied one day before the exam. Ramlal Birla was a businessman having 2 sons and 1 married daughter. He decided to gift his house to the daughter. Okay, gift. All right. And there is natural love and affection also. There is family relation. Yes. He called his lawyer and they made a written agreement. All right. In case of natural love and affection, for the contract to be valid, the agreement must be in writing. It must be based on natural love and affection. It must be registered. And it must be between persons standing in near relation. I am able to recall all the points because I have studied those 4 points properly. Okay, so this card book will help you to remember and recall all the points. Now, so they made a written agreement. Okay, now these are cumulative requirements. All the requirements have to be complied with. It is written. There is near relation, blood relation. Okay, he wants to gift. There is natural love and affection. But while they were going for registration, both met with an accident and died. Daughter found the document. Now she's claiming the house. It is not registered. It's not registered. All 4 conditions have to be satisfied. So yes, it is in writing. It is based on natural love and affection between persons standing in near, but it is not registered. So you will base your answer on section 25 that there are contracts which are valid again without consideration. Okay, so there are exceptions given in section 25, but the agreement has to be in writing, registered, based on natural love and affection, and between persons standing in near relation. So in the provisions part, you will write all this. So over here, it is based on natural love and affection. Parties are in near relation. It is written, but it is not registered. Hence, the property is not transferable. Daughter cannot get the house as gift. So this is how you will frame the answer. So my compiler will give you a very clear idea. The next section which I have selected is section 27. Yes, these are agreements which are expressly declared void. Restraint of trade, section 27. Agreements which are in restraint of trade. Yes, you cannot stop a person from carrying on lawful legal trade, occupation, profession. Any agreement which either completely or partially restricts a person is void, but there are exceptions. In case of sale of goodwill, okay, you can restrict a person from carrying on similar business in certain local limits. Like, you will not carry out business in Mumbai. You can carry it out anywhere in India, in the world, but not in Mumbai. So the restriction relates to a specific area. In case of partners agreement, you can say that while you are a partner, you cannot carry on any other business. I want you to focus on partnership business. In case of sale of goodwill, retirement, etc., you can limit either a specified time or specified local limits. Like, you will not carry on business in this area, or you will not carry on business for 2 years anywhere. After 2 years, you can. The restriction must be reasonable. That is the only requirement. Okay, the restriction must be reasonable. Anything up to 3 years is considered to be reasonable. Service agreement, you will not carry on, you will not go to the competitor for 6 months after leaving my service. Okay, then you will not accept any other employment while you are still in employment. So not to accept any other engagement. Like, for example, I may restrict a doctor working in the government hospital to start his own private practice. You may restrict that after leaving my company's service, you cannot join the competitor for 6 months. Such restrictions, if they are reasonable, they are valid. Okay. So this is section 27. One question which I have identified, and it is very frequently asked in different ways. Slight variations are asked. X agreed to become an assistant for Y for 2 years. It was agreed that during the term of engagement, X will not practice as a chartered accountant on his own within 20 kilometers. So while you're working with us, you will not start your own practice. He left the assistantship and he started practicing within 20 kilometers. Okay. So now, can he be restricted from doing so? Yes. You can be restricted because you had become an assistant for 2 years. You had promised that you will not practice on your own. Now, you may argue that, ma'am, he has left. Okay. So see, the contract was for 2 years. Now he left the assistantship and started his own practice. This is a breach of contract. So you can restrict him. So you will write about section 27. You will also write that the contract is valid. You have breached by starting your own practice. You can put an injunction. Injunction means order of the court stopping a person from doing something which he promised not to do. So you can, this is important keyword, you can injunct him, pass an order of injunction, and you can restrict him for another 1 year. So restriction is valid. So this type of question will be asked on that important concept. Next concept which I have identified is appropriation of payment, very frequently asked as a case-based question, but it can also be asked as a theory. It has never been asked as a theory question. My intuition says it can be asked as a theory also. Now, A has to pay several debts to B, let's say 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. These are different transactions. He pays 4,000 rupees. Okay. Now, we don't know which debt is satisfied. So, appropriation of payment says that when one person owes several debts to the other person, he makes payment which is insufficient to satisfy the entire debt. The entire debt is of 10,000. You are making payment of only 4,000. So your payment is insufficient to satisfy the entire debt. Then the order in which that money is to be applied is known as appropriation of payment. There are 4 steps. First step, do what the debtor wants. Then the creditor must appropriate accordingly. So do what the debtor wants. The debtor has given instructions. Do what the debtor wants. Creditor, you must appropriate accordingly. Debtor has not given any instruction, but now let's say he gives a check of exact 2,000. The circumstances imply creditor must appropriate accordingly. Okay, the debtor has not given any instruction. Circumstances do not apply. Creditor, you can appropriate it to any lawful debt, including a time-barred. Creditor, you can appropriate it on your own. You can even apply this money to a time-barred debt. Fourth situation, both are lazy. Okay, so neither the debtor says anything nor the circumstances imply, and the creditor has not appropriated. Then we will tell them that please apply the money in the order of time. Okay, in the order of time. You can also appropriate this money to a time-barred debt. If both the debts are on the same day, then the money will be applied proportionately. Now, let's say that the money given was 4,000. Okay, the debt of 3,000, no, I will say 2,000. Let's say 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. Now, I think I took wrong amounts earlier. Just make change 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. Okay, so now the debt of 2,000 and 3,000 are on the same day. Okay, so I need to appropriate 5,000, but I have received only 4,000. So appropriate proportionately. How to calculate proportion? Out of 4,000 received, okay, out of 4,000, how much should be applied to the first debt of 3,000 out of total debt of 5,000? 1,500. Out of 4,000, how much should be applied to the second debt out of 5,000? 2,400. This comes to 4. This is proportion. Okay. Next concept which I have identified is supervening impossibility. Now, the impossibility which exists at the time of contract, it is initial, contract is void ab initio. Any impossibility which arises after the formation of contract discharges the contract due to supervening impossibility, agreement becomes void. So, a supervening impossibility will make it void. These are the grounds on which the contract is discharged due to supervening impossibility. These are the grounds when the contract is not discharged. You only need to remember the head points. You can elaborate that 1 or 2 sentences on your own in the exam. In case of destruction of subject matter, if the subject matter is destroyed, how can I perform the contract? Death or incapacity generally does not discharge the contract, but if personal skill, personal consideration is involved, then the contract becomes void due to super possibility. Contract is valid when it is entered, but later on, okay, later on, due to certain circumstances, it cannot be enforced, it becomes void, and now we know the reason due to supervening impossibility. When there is change of law, if the law has changed earlier, export of onions was allowed, now it is banned, contract becomes void, I cannot enforce. Non-existence or non-occurrence of a particular state of things, X promised to marry Y, but before marriage, he turned mad, crazy, lunatic, contract cannot be performed, it is impossible due to supervening impossibility. But if there is some difficulty, it is not impossible, contract remains valid. There is some commercial impossibility, either my profit is reducing or I may suffer loss. That is your problem. Why should the other party suffer? You have to perform the contract at the price agreed in the contract. Default of third party. Now the third party did not give goods to the seller, so he could not deliver it to the buyer. He's saying it is impossible. Array, the goods can be purchased from somewhere else. It is difficult. It is not impossible. Contract is valid. Strikes, lockout, civil disturbances, when they are over, then you can perform the contract. It is difficult. It is not impossible. In all these cases, the contract remains valid. Non-performance, okay, non-performance amounts to breach of contract. Aggrieved party can claim damage. That also you need to know. Then the next important concept is special damages. So in case of special damages, this is from breach of contract, case study based questions are asked. Okay, Headley versus Baxendale case law is important. You need to know the facts. Headley versus Baxendale. Now, what are special damages? They cannot be claimed as a matter of right. I can claim special damages only in case of loss of profit when there are special circumstances and those special circumstances are communicated to the promisor. Okay. So there should be special or extraordinary circumstances. The two requirements. Okay. What is, firstly, you should write what are special damages. It is claimed for loss of profit, but they can be claimed only when special or extra circumstances exist. Okay. And very important, and they are communicated to the promise. You can claim not only ordinary but also special damages, but it is very important that you should communicate the existence of special circumstances. To give you an example, A promised to build a house for B. B says, please build it and give it to me by 1st of January. I need you to give it on rent to C. B builds the house, but he builds in such poor condition that the house fell. B had to rebuild the house. He could not give it to C. Now, the special circumstances of giving it on rent to C were communicated to A. B can claim ordinary as well as special damage. He can claim ordinary as well as special. Next concept that I have identified is quasi-contract. This is basically asked as a theory question. The section numbers are also very, very, very important for you. Case-based question, case-based are generally asked on necessary section 68, 69, 71. This 70 they may or may not ask, but please write. You have to learn. Case-based question, theory questions, everything is asked on this. So in case of necessaries, even if the person is not capable of contracting, the contract will be valid because it's a quasi-contract for necessaries. Money paid for another person. Now, it was the obligation of the other person, but you have paid money on his behalf. Yes, the recovery is possible. I'm not going into detail because I'm assuming that you have covered the concepts till now. Yes. The quasi-contract you must have studied, non-gratuitous. Yes, it is important for case-based. Then we have discharge. Okay, next let's go to guarantee. Okay, discharge of surety. This is very important now. If you want, you can take a break and rewind and come to the concept, because I know it is like jumping from one concept to the other, but that's how we need to study for exam. Now, in case of guarantee, surety gives guarantee to the creditor. Arey, don't worry, the debtor will perform the contract. If he doesn't, I will perform. There are certain circumstances where the surety is discharged. Now, why? See, the debtor and creditor are making certain changes. They are doing things without the consent of surety. That is why he is discharged. Okay? Things are happening without the consent of surety. That is why he is discharged. So, discharge by revocation. Now, what is revocation? First, surety gave the guarantee, then he revoked. He will be liable for the transactions before revocation. He will not be liable for transactions after revocation. Death, he died. Again, he is liable for transactions before death, not after death. His estate. So over here, revocation applies to future transactions only. Revocation applies to future transactions. It means he's not liable for transactions after revocation. Novation. Novation means entering into a new contract in place of original. Debtor and creditor are entering into a new contract. Did you ask the surety? No, surety is discharged. By variation, you made changes in the original contract without asking the surety. Surety is discharged. But what is when is he discharged? He is discharged as to the future transactions, subsequent transactions, but he is not discharged for the transactions before variation. Very important, very important. He will not be discharged for any variance which is not substantial or any variance which is beneficial to the surety. So if it is very nominal, okay, it is not that substantial change. In fact, the change is for the benefit of the surety, then he is not discharged. Can be asked as a case-based question. Discharge of the debtor. If the debtor is discharged, if the debtor is not liable, automatically the surety is also not liable. Discharge by arrangement. We make some arrangement like compounding. We are settling with the debtor, then surety is discharged. More time is given to the debtor. It is understood on request of debtor. Students, we also have a revision batch of the entire chart book. Okay, I am leaving a link in the description. We discuss the entire chart book and we revise all the concepts. So lectures are available. Revision lectures from the chart book are also available on my website. Okay, or we are promising not to sue the debtor. If we are not going to take any action against the debtor, the surety is automatically. Creditor does something. Okay, this is also discharged. creditor does something which is inconsistent with the rights, or the creditor loses, or he actually parts with a surety without, he parts with a security without the consent of surety. Now, the creditor was given furniture as security by the debtor along with guarantee. So the debtor gave the security and the guarantee also. The creditor loses the furniture. The surety's liability is reduced by that amount. Okay. So he is discharged means his liability is reduced to the extent of value of security. So if the furniture was worth 60,000 and the surety's guarantee was 1 lakh, so then his guarantee will now be reduced by 60,000 and he will be liable only for 40,000. His guarantee is reduced. The next concept which I have identified is pledge by non-owner, very similar to sale by non-owner. The only difference is that in case of sale, you will use the word pledge. So if the mercantile agent pledges the goods, okay, without our consent, if the conditions are satisfied, even though he is not the owner, pledge will be valid. This is very important for case-based question. Now, I'll give you an example. X, by fraud, obtained a necklace from Y. Now, we know that fraud means the contract is voidable. Y can either treat the contract as valid or cancel the contract. But before Y could cancel the contract, X pledged the furniture, the necklace with Z. Now, as usual, Z got it in good faith. He had no knowledge of fraud. Okay, he had no knowledge of fraud. So, in this case, if the contract is caused as a result of coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, the pledge takes place before the contract is rescinded or cancelled. Z buys it in good, takes it in good faith without knowledge, then the pledge is valid. It means Z will not give the necklace unless and until he is paid the money involved in pledge. So if Y wants the necklace, he will pay the money involved in pledge. He will get back his necklace. He will then file a case of fraud against X. Pledge by co-owner, it is valid even though he did not have the right. So A, B, C, they are joint owners of the furniture. It is kept with A with the consent of B and C. He alone cannot pledge, but he pledges. Z takes it in good faith without knowledge. Pledge is valid. Pledge where the pawner has limited interest. Very interesting example. Limited interest. X found a watch on the road. He spent 100 rupees and got the watch repaired. He then pledged it with Y. Z, the true owner, okay, he pledged, let's say, for 300 rupees. Z, the true owner, is now claiming the watch. Law says that Z, you lost a defective watch and you are getting a repaired watch. Your interest is 100. Pay 100 rupees to Y. Okay, so Z will pay 100 rupees. But even then, he will not get the watch. X, you pay 200 rupees because see, you got 300 ka benefit, but you also spend 100 rupees for repair. So your interest is 200. Okay, so Z will pay 100. X will pay 200. Pledge is valid to the extent of your interest in the pledge. Z's interest is 100 rupees repairing charge. Y got the benefit of only 200 rupees. So the pledge is valid to the extent of the interest. Y got 100 rupees from Z, 200 rupees from X. He is also happy. The pledge is valid but only to the extent of interest. Okay. Agency. Next we have termination of agency. My prediction is that this can be asked as a theory question. It is important. It can be asked as a theory question. When does agency come to an end? When they mutually decide. When we either revoke the authority of the agent or he is renouncing, he is giving up. Okay. Termination by operation of law, automatically it is terminated. When the business is complete, death or insanity of either principal or agent, insolvency of principal, now he is no longer competent to contract, winding up of the company. If the company has wound up, be it principal or agent, everything relation comes to an end. On expiry of the fixed period, I had formed the agency of 5 years, 5 years are over, automatically agency will come to an end. You just need to elaborate these points, but it is important for you to remember the head point. All right, students. So this was termination of agency, and with this we have now come to an end of 10 important concepts from Contract Act. My next lecture will be on Sale of Goods Act. So please revise the Sale of Goods Act so that I can discuss the 10 important concepts from Sale of Goods Act for you. My next lecture will be on Sale of Goods Act. Please be ready. You can purchase this chart book from my website, capreetyagarwal.com. Here we also write and practice. There are revision lectures which are available. We are very soon launching these revision lectures in English. So do visit my website and I will see you in my next class.